We're live on X, Rumble, just about to be live on Rockfin, YouTube, at least for a little while. YouTube gets very, very critical or about what they allow. You get cut off midstream very often around election time on YouTube and Instagram as well. I learned the other day, actually, that criticizing and making fun of the DNC is considered by Instagram to be hate speech because they cut my stream off midstream because you can't be hateful to the DNC. Not hateful. It wasn't even hateful. You can't say a critical thing about them. Got a fun show for you this afternoon. Interesting show. Let's dive in. Media lies about the Georgia state election. On Monday, the Georgia State Election Board voted 3-2 in favor of a rule change that would allow local officials to investigate the elections before certifying the results, a notion that, judging by the response in the media and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, is just simply preposterous. Check the vote count before the election is certified. That's outrageous. You're only supposed to do that after it's been certified, when it becomes much, much harder to do anything about any problems that are found. Because this rule, this is what this is all about, I believe. This rule change makes it much harder for them to steal an election if that's what they decide that they want to do. And I believe that the subsequent response to this rule change in Georgia is part of what I'm calling the powers that be, their attempt to protect the steal. And I have the perfect guest to talk to us about that today. It is insight from the front lines of this battle, a man who's done more to protect election integrity, not just the past 4 years, but the past 20 years than anybody else in the country. The legend, Garland Favorito. Garland.
I didn't know I was a legend yet.
Oh, you're a living legend, Garland. Those of us who are aware of your work are aware of the legendary status.
I thought I'd have to die to get that status.
So I went to that. I didn't go to it, was virtual, but I went to some of that election board meeting on Monday, and I heard them do the vote count. And even hearing them vote for a rule that is good, it's almost surreal because they do so many things to railroad everything that you guys have done to make it hard to actually protect or have election integrity or actually have any accountability. To tell us exactly what the rule does, what was passed or the rule change, what it does, what it means, and then we'll talk about the attacks on it afterwards.
Okay, great. So there was quite a few rules that have been passed or initiated into rulemaking because we have gotten the election board uh, reconfigured to have a majority of people who actually care about election
The
integrity.
MAGA extremist, as the media calls them.
Yeah, so what they actually are three people who care about election integrity,
Right.
and and that's a first. I don't think, I've been going to election board meetings for 20 years, and I've never had I never, three, majority of board members that really care about election integrity. So this rule, it's not, to be honest with you, it's not nearly as big of a deal as what the media has made out of it. I think the rule that you were talking about is 183-12-12, and it was proposed by Sally Grubbs. It was written by Commissioner Bridget Thorne. Yeah, I think you know her. And it was Sally Grubbs and David Hancock proposed it originally. And a similar rule was passed, approved by the board, by Mike Heekin. And the whole issue, as you said, Brad, it revolves around the fact that superintendents can, which are the board members, who are responsible for certifying, should be able to look at all the documents that they need to and certify the results accordingly, or explain why they are refusing to certify. So this drove the news media crazy, which was very, very bizarre. And I'll tell you how it all originated. Um, they're claiming that it's illegal to do this. And I'll talk about why it's not illegal. But basically, here's the first nutshell is it just simply confirms what Georgia law already says. And I'll walk through all the statutes with you for that. I'm ready to do that. But the way this whole originated was back in I think it was I'm getting my dates mixed up. I think it was the August 6th meeting. There was Michael Heekin presented a very similar rule, and Michael was on the Fulton County Board of Elections, and he presented his rule. It was approved, and it was completely consistent with Georgia law. And the chairman of the board, who suddenly he got this newfound sense of balance, where he wanted to hear from opposition parties, which is ironic that he didn't want to hear that when we had the evidence that the voting system was counting correct.
Yeah.
In Senate Bill counting incorrect in State Election Board Rule 2022-348. So he invites this guy to speak against the rule. Now, this is unprecedented. You don't have anybody normally speaking against the rule. Somebody presents it, and then you vote it up or down. So he invites an out-of-state, Soros-funded, politically motivated attorney who has no license to practice in the state of Georgia to speak against the rule. And the attorney says,
so this was during the meeting, not this past Monday's, or is the previous meeting?
This was the previous meeting. Yeah. And this is where it all started. And he says, oh, it's illegal. You can't do that. And he quotes case law, which is not case law, previous rulings from, I think one was from the state of Florida, another one was from 1899, before the elections.
Common law.
Yeah, really. Might as well have gone all the way back to common law to try to claim what is common sense is illegal. I mean, only in a Marxist environment would you have this. But
that's a great way to put it. Like they want people to think that what is common sense is illegal, radical, dark, and dangerous. Everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where this whole thing about this being illegal came from this attorney who should never have been allowed to speak anyway. But the chairman.
And Florida case law has nothing to do with Georgia anyway.
That's right. You're right. Florida cases cannot. They're not precedents for Georgia, and 1899 case precedents are almost always something that has been superseded by Georgia law.
So when I see all these articles or hear Brad Raffensperger talking, and then they're all saying the same things about how it's illegal to do this in Georgia, it's not like they're not allowed to even do this, and then they don't tell you why it's illegal in any of those articles. It's because of this George Soros guy who was sent in to cite Florida case law and case law from 1899 that has no precedent power.
Right. And I don't recall him even citing a Georgia statute when his little speech. But that's where all this started. Then the ACLU picked up on it, and the news media picked up on it because, this sounds like a good reason so that we can continue to operate corrupt elections.
Absolutely. But if they want to steal it, they don't want laws like that being passed, because it makes it harder for them to do it. And you can see that expressed. You can see the coordination in the media. I think even if this rule isn't as big a deal as the media is saying. They need to make it out to be in case one that is an even bigger deal comes out so they can say, you thought this was radical. This other one's even more radical. And I'm going to just show you some of the headlines that are I see these every day now. All you hear is about the DNC this week, but in the background of it is an attack on the Georgia State Election Board members who voted for that. They're called MAGA right-wing extremists, and they're said conspiracy theorists who didn't just fully accept the 2020 election, as though that's like a dangerous thing to have questions about something. But that's the way they frame it, and then they attack the rule as illegal, like you said. I did a search just for the past 24 hours just to see what the headlines were about this rule change. Can you see those headlines? Let me make it a little bit bigger.
I sure can. I can.
So here's just some of them. The Washington Post headline: Georgia counties urge state election board to stop changing rules ahead of November. August elections from the August Chronicle. Augusta elections director leads state group in questioning late changes to the voter rules. So they'll question the changes to the rules, but they won't question problems with the election, it seems like. Rich County director calls on Georgia State Elections Board to halt rule changes ahead of November. AJC, which is basically CNN of Atlanta, all about. They give you so CNN. Everything they have. I actually didn't read that article, but I have read some of their articles. It's all about how this is going to throw the election into chaos, and this is part of Trump's plan to steal the election in 2024. When it's very obvious to me it's part of their plan to protect their ability to steal the election. Yeah. You have how recent Georgia election board rule could cause chaos in November. The election board, beloved by Trump, the Georgia election board, keeps cranking out rules that may sow chaos. And it goes on and on and on with the similar talking points that were doled out and repeated. And I played a clip on the show the other day of, it was a local WSB TV anchor, I think, or no, it was a Fox 5 affiliate. And she's reading the prompter and she's heard people talk about it. But you can just hear in the tone that she delivered the lines that the way people talk about it, it's like, oh, this has to be talked about. I have to emote kind of disdain and disgust. And it was like, Georgia Election Board voted on a new rule that is concerning. Just she spoke about it with such disdain that it's like anybody watching would go, oh my gosh, that must be awful. I think we lost Garland there. He might have got kicked, Garland. Hopefully he will rejoin us here in a second. I was telling him before the show that at some point in almost every show, it feels like lately, my camera freezes up. And yeah, we were talking about this before the show, Garland, the technical problems that people like us have, that the CNN anchors have 40 interns working behind the scenes.
That was totally me. That was totally my bad.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, so the attack is on, which means they're terrified of this. And you know who you identified the lawyer, the Soros lawyer, where it started. And that's funny because the messaging talking points that Brad Raffensperger, CNN's favorite Republican next to Brian Kemp, has been spreading, and all these other outlets have been spreading, I identified where those propaganda talking points came from, which I expected it would be, which is Fair Fight Georgia and Stacey Abrams. And Stacey Abrams owes George Soros. He funded her for her entire career and funded many of these organizations that does this type of work for basically vote harvesting for her. So it's interesting to see that you got Soros and Abrams worked on the same project here. I just want to read you just a little bit of this Fair Fight email, because I sign up for all this activist stuff, and the alarmism. You think it's like hardcore in the news media. When they get you in your private email, they often don't hold back. This is from earlier this week. I think this is the one. I hope it's the one. It'd be funny if I just pulled up like a personal email that was. All right. Election. All right. So Johnny Blastoff, that's my alias, which is obviously a very fake name. Johnny Blastoff. Georgia elections are facing more attacks from Trump's MAGA operation than anywhere else in America. Recent changes to the Georgia State Election Board have transformed it into a MAGA-aligned government body. And then they list 3 bullet points as evidence. First one, 3 of the board's 5 members have expressed doubts that President Biden won the 2020 election. One new member.
Ability. At least they're intelligent.
Right. One new member is a former Republican Party operative.
I don't know what that means. I have seen that before. What is a former Republican Party operative?
I don't know. I don't know. It makes it sound like an undercover dark operator by calling somebody an operative, I think.
I mean, here's all I know is Janelle King is on Georgia Gang, and she represents a Republican viewpoint. Rick Jeffries, the other new member, is a former state senator. So I guess
it's like, who are they even talking about? You know,
Dr. Johnson, I don't think they're talking about her. She's not new.
Yeah. And the third point here, they said, is they're trying to pass new rules that can be used to sow distrust. And you see that very phrase in many of these headlines I was showing you, to sow distrust in election outcomes and delay the certification of results. And then you see down here.
What they're trying to do is avoid distrust in the election.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see the clickable link here, which takes you to a donation page. It says, as MAGA prepares its election sabotage strategy, it's critical that we're prepared to fight back. Can you rush a donation today to help Fair Fight sound the alarm and mobilize activists wherever your voting rights are threatened? And they continue. Yeah.
Bingo. That's the whole reason for this. But I'll save that till you finish.
No, she says more or less the same stuff. If you want to go through it just because you're interested in it and see what they're talking, because I think I
read it. I like this. That's fine.
I got to give you some credit with the work you've done. Joe Biden himself, during an interview like 2 weeks ago, it was hard to decipher what he was saying, but he was like, "Man, what they're even doing? What they're doing in Georgia, where they're talking about counting the votes. Are you serious? You're counting the votes?" As though that's just like so preposterous. I'm like, man, they're scared of the work y'all are doing. So the email continues to say the MAGA-aligned state election board members are changing Georgia's election rules with less than 85 days to go. And some of the new rules could be used to delay or block the certification of the results. And that the rules could increase workload demands. And this is a talking point that those activists in the public comments were saying. They're overworked. There's going to increase the workload demands of overburdened election workers. They probably got the same email, which could overwhelm county elections offices and even stop certification. And they said another proposed rule would give local officials the power to stop counting the votes and delay or refuse certification altogether, which flies in the face of Georgia law, which is what you were just talking about.
Well, that's right. They're required to certify, and we'll talk about this in a minute, or certify, and if they're not comfortable, then they're required to write a reason for why they're not.
Yeah. We're watching the groundwork be laid for the obstruction of certification of 2024 election results. So the language here, they're creating an image in their followers' head of an insurrection of January 6th. Georgia is truly a battleground state that will be pivotal for the final results of the election, which is exactly why Donald Trump and the GOP are so focused on changing the rules of the electoral process. If your Georgia vote wasn't so powerful, they wouldn't be trying so hard to suppress it. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. But you hit, and there you go. That's the reason why they are doing this.
This last paragraph here.
No, it's that donate button.
Right, yeah. They get people scared and they have the donate button and they end like with a line, they end with Exactly. The time is now. If we spread the word to turn out the vote, we have the power to stop MAGA's election sabotage scheme. So this is a sabotage scheme. What they say is going on. It's crazy.
And if anybody was sat in the hearing, they would know better. In fact, the people who are even our adversaries who are sitting on the hearing, I think they're pretty impressed with the detail. that were coming up. But the reason, that paragraph and that donate button, incite your everyone, psychologically program, incite them so that they have to donate money so that you can keep this propaganda out. That's
Absolutely.
that's really where it's all about. That whole email, in my opinion, is nothing more than attempt to fundraise through fear.
To fundraise through fear and organize people for direct action, knocking on doors to spread these messages to other people as well.
Right. Spread the
And
lie.
yeah, and so every time people who are brainwashed by this kind of stuff, I mean, this is a complete inversion of reality, is what, like you said it earlier, making what's reasonable. Or, I can't remember how you phrased it, but it was perfect. The rule that was passed in any other context, if people read that without somebody telling them how they're supposed to interpret it, they'd say, "Oh, this makes sense," you know. But because they get all this build up to it, this priming in their brain of you're about to hear something dark and evil, then the very normal, reasonable thing they hear after all that, it aligns with the pre-programming that's been put into their head by emails like this.
Absolutely. And Binkley, the funniest one. I don't know if you want to shift gears yet, but the funniest of all of these media reports was one from the New York Times. And it said, because of these changes, Trump is likely to win Georgia in 2024.
Well,
Because of
because they'll
the
count the votes.
yeah, because of these election
That is funny.
changes, Trump is likely to win. It take Georgia away from them. So
I mean, it's almost to the point where you're going to see a headline where it's like, new rule change will allow all votes to be counted, enabling a dark outcome, a Trump victory. It's just like, oh my God, we better make sure they're not counted.
that's it. That's it. That was the essence of the New York Times article.
Yeah. That is so crazy. And so Brad Raffensperger, which that phone call with him and Trump is the entire basis, really, of the Fulton County indictment. The lie about that phone call is he's Republican in name only, and the media, ever since Trump did that rally in Atlanta, which I was interviewing people outside. Were you down there for that? Did you see?
Yeah, I was in there definitely.
Wasn't it a wild just environment, just outside and inside, just people having a good time and like everything they say about the enthusiasm for Kamala, you could see the enthusiasm there. And I talked to a number of people, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, and the media they're like, Trump's pissed off because Kamala got more people in Atlanta. I'm like, no, she didn't. I was there. You're lying about that. And so part of the media narrative after that was Trump focused his speech on fighting with beloved Georgia Republicans, Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp. And I'm like, no, they called them broadly popular Republicans. CNN, broadly popular among CNN's newsroom is what they actually meant. So it was no surprise to me when Raffensperger came out completely aligned with the media narrative about this, and you put together a PowerPoint about the stuff that he wasn't truthful about. Do you want to go through that?
Well, yeah, but before you do, I want to give you some statues to prove that
Okay, great.
all we were doing before, and bore everybody for a couple of minutes. But before we go back to that, you mentioned the rally. One of the I guess I don't know if it's funny or sad. One of the funniest or saddest points that I read an article, or at least I glanced at it. I think it came from the Irish Star, and they had taken a picture of the stands, one section in the stands, the only section that happened to be empty, 2 hours before the were started, and then they went on and said that Trump's rally didn't have the people. In reality,
yeah.
I just happened to know it because I was sitting there looking at that stand 2 hours before the rally started because you had to get in there early.
Right.
So that was total
It's
bull.
gaslighting. It's a lie. And what I've been talking about lately is I tried to go to Kamala's rally. And so they talk about this groundswell of support for her. But one very simple reason you know that this is not true the way they're presenting it is because you cannot find out exactly where and what time Kamala's rallies are beforehand unless you are a member, an already vetted member of a Democrat party in that locale who specifically gets the invitation to come there about a week or so ahead of time, or a homeless person they put on an overpass to hold a sign, and then they'd say the location a couple hours before you can, after it's too late for new people to come see. It's already vetted people they can control. They control it just like Biden. So it's not even possible for new people to be there and excited because they don't know when and where it is. And Trump, on the other hand, I was able to go down there and be outside his rally because they published it for everybody to know.
Yeah, you probably had a good time there.
It was fun. It was. I mean, it was. Well, I got some great clips, and it was fun. It was interesting. I would have loved to have seen firsthand what it was like outside Kamala's rally, but they try and prevent anybody who's going to try and be honest about it from being there. I did see photos of the people outside, though, and it wasn't comparable to the lines. I mean, the lines were wrapped around the old Braves Stadium like it was 1991 in his Game 7 of the World Series. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there for 95's Game 7.
Oh, yeah? That's cool. My parents were at that game, too.
Yeah, it was 1-0. David Justice hit a home run to win it.
That's right. Steve Avery. No, not Steve Avery. Glavine pitched that game, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Glavine did. That's right.
Yeah.
I was worried when they relieved him in the last inning. I didn't know if they were going to give that away or not. But
yeah, that's back when pitchers pitched more than 5 innings. Starting pitchers nowadays, it's bullpen games.
So before we move on, I just wanted to shoot down this whole argument since you were showing those media clips.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and it's all about, oh, it's going to delay, or they don't have the authority to, you know, these certifications only ministry.
They've been working 16 hours, and now you expect them to count by hand and not believe a computer? That's what one lady said in the public comment during the hearing on Monday.
Yeah, that's funny. And the whole argument this a lawyer was making, the certification is just ministerial. I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I just want to give you some statutes because it's great to make fun of it, but let's give the audience
totally
a few statutes so you know that they're lying. Absolutely. So I'm just going to read a few of these real quickly and bore y'all. But here's OCGA 21278. That's 78, paragraph 8. And it says the duties of these board members who have to certify is to inspect systematically and thoroughly the conduct of primaries and elections to the end that primaries and elections may be honestly, efficiently, and uniformly conducted. So it's not ministerial. It's very clearly, it's the opposite.
It's their duty to do that.
Right. And the rule originally just said we need to make a reasonable inquiry. Well, the law is saying that, oh, no, you need to even go further than what the news media, the mainstream news media is saying.
What was that statute again? I want to make sure I get that correct.
OCGA 21270. It's 21-2-70, paragraph 8.
Cool. Paragraph 8. All right.
And then they all have to sign an attestation form. So one of the election board members explained at the last one of the last meetings and held up the form and says, here's what it says. It says that they have to certify that the attached election results summary is a true and correct count of the votes cast in the county. So it's not just a box you check off. You have to actually be sure of it. Another statute says, this is OCJ 21-2-2015, paragraph B. So it's paragraph 15, paragraph B.
21-2-2015, you said?
21-2-20, okay. And in parentheses 15 in parentheses B.
Okay.
And it says this is their oath. This is their oath of office, that I will, to the best of my ability, prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse, and I will make a true and perfect return of such primaries and elections. So that's what they are required. That's their oath. Now, if they don't perform their oath and they actually just certify something that they don't know if it's true or not, they can be charged with a felony under OCGA 161020.
So they need to do what this rule allows them to do to prevent them from being convicted of a felony potentially, if we're going by the law.
Well, they have to, even if the rule didn't exist, they still have to do that
Right.
by law. So the rule didn't really do as much as what the media thinks. But then the final statute is that it says the superintendent, this is 21-493, the superintendent shall then examine all the registration and primary or election documents. The superintendent is the election board. So they have authority to look at anything to ensure that they're making a true and accurate count of the votes and that they're certifying that correctly. That's always been Georgia law.
Yeah.
It's not new. Now, some of the boards, one in particular, Fulton County, is withholding information from the board members to certify. So the superintendent represents the entire board. A typical election board has 3 to 5 members. And to withhold information from them is really against the law.
What's the nature of what's being withheld? Do you have any idea?
Well, there are different election records that the election board member wants to see before they certify, just to make sure that the results.
That's just. I mean, that should be the story. The stuff like that, you know.
Well, right, and it's a totally false dialogue, and that's the dialogue Brad Ravensburger is repeating.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so crazy. So it's already very clear that you just laid it out, and yet they present this alternative gaslit reality. I mean, it makes me. I mean, it makes me think of that. Makes me wonder why they haven't just said, no, that duty to prevent fraud, that's just ceremonial. That's not real. And then try and change it later, like they did with the Mike Pence thing and Trump, the January 6th thing, where it's like Mike Pence has the power to stop it or to whatever. And then they went back and changed the law and said that was just ceremonial.
That's right. They actually changed. That's exactly what they did. They changed the law to say it was ceremonial after the fact.
Right. And then they used that in indictments and stuff. That's part of the.
Oh,
it's so crazy. So
how much more corruption can we stand?
It's like really wild. And people are so blinded by, you know, we have a couple of Little John comments. I don't know if you saw Little John doing the certificate during the, he was presenting the delegates from Georgia to Kamala during the roll call. I mean, that was the craziest roll call I've ever seen. And
I did see that.
It was really crazy. Yeah. So what all I have, I'm going to put this document from that you sent me about Brad Raffensperger. Is there anything? Is there some stuff in here that you haven't covered yet that he talked about?
No, I just want to give you those statutes. That way you know me, I got to have some.
I love doing the statute. Like my law school experience, those statutes are when you're making an argument for whatever side you're on, you go to those statutes and you see if they're applicable and you line them up with the facts of the situation. And that is how you create precedent and stuff like that. So that's actually the most important stuff. That this is the first time I'm hearing about what those actually are. I mean, the media is certainly not going to cover it. So I love getting in the nitty gritty of that, actually.
Yeah. So why, that's very interesting. Why didn't anybody else do it?
Because they don't want people to know they exist.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So I just loved that you called it, because I'd said something about Raffensperger lying, and then like the next day I saw you tweet this out, and I was like, yeah, he's already on top of calling out Raffensperger's BS lies. So what all is in here that the lies he told?
Now is that my email to Jason?
It says that you're writing to offer details about the false information that Raffensperger gave during the interview to Justin.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what we just covered.
Okay.
So Ravensburger did a WSB TV interview on that Friday, and I guess that was last Friday. I mean, the days are going by so fast, I can't remember. I
He
think it
did
was
it like right before the rule vote. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, which was Monday. So Ravensburger basically did this interview, and he made the same comment that the Soros funded, politically motivated attorney with no bar license in Georgia made.
Mm-hmm.
So um, he was. I just basically sent a letter to Justin Gray,
The
and I
reporter who interviewed him.
forgot we put this out. Yeah, and he was the reporter who interviewed him from WSB TV, and that you used to be on WSB Radio,
Mm-hmm.
and WSB has been pretty fair. They're usually pretty fair, and in fairness, they did interview Janelle King for an opposite opinion.
Well, what I
But
see, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
What I see here is so the talking points, like you mentioned, same thing Soros guy said. Raffensperger's does not have, quote, state law on my side. Very clearly, you just demonstrated that.
Yeah,
But yeah, but that's a statement that someone who is overseeing elections in a state, people hear that and they go, "Oh, yeah, he must be telling the truth." When it's just it's gaslighting at a whole nother level. Like,
uh, and he knows, Brad, that they will polyparrot and reprint, rebroadcast anything he says.
everything he says because he says what they
Yeah,
want him to
right.
say.
Yeah,
So yeah, you pulled quotes from what he said, and it'd be interesting. I might do this later to take these things that he actually said and search them in Google in quotes and just see how they've been populated throughout every single article, and they're just the opposite of reality, which can
yeah,
clearly be they can be disproven by what you just did by citing those statutes.
yeah. Well, the key word would probably be ministerial. If you
What exactly does that mean, ministerial, in this
well,
context?
it means you're just supposed to check off stuff and not
Okay,
actually
yeah, check the
uh,
box.
not actually do your duty.
Did this reporter respond to you?
No, Justin has not called me back. He knows me. We've done a piece before a long time ago on the Dominion voting system when we filed a case on that.
About how secure they are and they're impenetrable?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
But we were trying to get rid of them back then.
yeah.
Um, and we still are, by the way. We still want to unplug Georgia. You can see the sign behind me.
And doesn't Raffensperger, hasn't he been, you told him about issues with him before we even used him and he didn't listen, brought him in anyway?
Before he was even Secretary of State,
Mm-hmm.
we went to him. I vividly remember a lunch that I had, and Michael Opitz of Madison Forum was there, and Brad Ravensburger. He had come to a meeting to present to us. He was feeling very under the weather, and but he graciously, talked with us. And I explained to him, just be careful, don't buy a voting system that has a QR code because you can't verify that the results
Yeah.
uh, are correct. The voter can't verify what they're doing. And he he thanked us for us, and then he just basically ignored it and did exactly the opposite.
Right. Uh, yeah. These headlines, they all say the same thing. Raphael Warnock even made a statement about it from the DNC. So this is at the top of their mind because they don't want this spreading to other. They don't want counties following it. They don't want other states saying maybe we should double check things before we just pass it on through. They don't want actual watchdog activities to happen. They just want to give the presumption of that because you have seen what happens when you're only allowed to kind of kind of investigate the election afterwards up until the judges, up until you discover problems and the judges railroad you, then they kick you out for process and procedure. It's nearly impossible to, if you discover that maybe it wasn't the outcome we thought it was after the fact, because they won't let you. And I think that, I mean, I feel for those election board members. Bravo to them for having the balls to do that. They're going to be under so much attack. They're going to be demonized. They're going to try and anything they say and do, anything in their background, they're going to try to make it out to be worst evil. It could be a piece of paper sitting on a desk that a camera person catches from across the street, and the New York Times will be like, Klan hood found on the desk of Georgia election board worker who voted in favor. Like that's the kind of stuff they do. It's like wild, and I fear that they could be the subject of the media's smear campaign leading up to the election in a pretty hardcore way. I hope not.
Well, it's already started, Brad. You know, that's the media has been attacking the board almost relentlessly, and these Janelle and Dr. Johnston and Rick Jeffries have had tremendous courage and patience to withstand, and determination to withstand all that trash talk.
Absolutely. I mean, because through your work and seeing how judges and others just, when you present them with great evidence that should indicate, okay, we need to look into this further. We need to look and see if the same thing happened in other counties or whatever. They don't do that. They say, I don't want to touch this, is what they say. And they find a reason to kick it out. And so Joe Biden can say, man, he challenged all the elections and he lost. And he lost. But you didn't lose. You had people run away from the actual evidence that you presented. And to see them get on that board and not be that way and be like, I know I'm going to be under attack, but if we want a fair election, this is what we got to do. So I commend them, and I commend you for all that. To me, even if the rule isn't as, impactful as they say it is, the fact that it was passed, I think it's such a big win. And it's good to see people having their back and stuff too. So I like that. You gotta know people got your back to continue doing work like that.
Well, right, and that's why we've been trying to come out in favor of the board as much as possible and what they're doing.
So when did they get elected? They got elected not long ago, right?
Well, the board's appointed.
Okay.
So there are a variety of just to walk you through, the Democrat and Republican parties get one member each. That is Dr. Johnston for the Republicans, Sarah Gozel for the Democrats, Sarah Tindall Gozel, and then the legislatures get two picks. The House Speaker picked Janelle King. Lieutenant Governor Jones picked former Senator Rick Jeffries, and then the governor appointed the chairman, who's John Favier, who is a former, he's still a Waffle House executive. He's worked for 37 years in security for Waffle House. That's how the board is. That's the composition of the board.
Yeah. Okay. Were the Democrats in the public comments that were all saying the same thing? Was that out of the ordinary? I feel like it was during the meeting on Monday.
Yes, because historically, for the last few meetings, the election integrity advocates have swamped all the public comments.
Okay.
So this meeting went online, and then strangely, almost all the public comments were from those aligned with that fair fight mentality.
They were saying the same thing. I was listening to it and I was like, what? this is an activist gang rush. And somebody even said, I feel like my message has already been delivered, but then just went on to say the same thing again. And then I think one person got in there and said, it's kind of odd that all these people are here saying, because he said that people don't always know about these meetings ahead of time, and somehow this group of people were able to coordinate and get in here when maybe others weren't. And last time you were on the show, I had asked you about how to find out about some of these meetings, because they do make it difficult to locate time and dates of when these things are going to happen on the Georgia Secretary of State page. It's not exactly advertised on the homepage. You got to kind of search for it, or you be told about it. Like you guys told me, I got the link from you guys, and I appreciate that, so I was able to go in there. But a link seemed to have been sent out to probably the Fair Fight group or something to get in there, and that makes me think of the Soros lawyer you talked about, funding these activists across the country to do stuff specifically like this to try and prevent rules and whatever from being passed. Is pumping that federal or global ideas that they want to spread locally as though they arose ground up when they absolutely didn't. I mean, we don't even know where these people were from. We have no idea if they're actually even from Georgia.
Right. Right. We don't. In fact, the attorney was not. He was from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, probably not. Pisses me off. Yeah. Greg says good to hear from Garland. Always good to hear. Nate, poll workers must unionize. The kind of work is just too much. Being sarcastic about what some of those people were making comments about. A couple Little John comments from the DNC the other night. Are there other rules that are coming up again? Because I saw an article, some mainstream media, so could very well not be true, but they were warning of other rules that are going to be voted on in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. So I've got two rules that passed unanimously that should be up in the next meeting for final approval. One is the retention of memory cards to keep them for 2 years.
Oh, you mean so they don't destroy evidence?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the other one is to put in a little reconciliation of tabulator tapes to the scanner ballots total counted, so that you can detect this QR code error that is rejecting ballots, causing them not to count. And that's the error that the Tennessee Secretary of State found and decided to basically discontinue the use of the system in Tennessee.
Actually, so do a marking or something that identified it as being a problem?
Well, yeah. So the story of that is I was actually a poll worker, a very astute poll worker in Tennessee, who realized that the tabulator tapes ballots were not matching up with scanner ballot counts, total ballot counts. And she pointed that out, and then it turns out that there was, in fact, a problem that the EAC admitted was a problem, Dominion admitted it was a problem, and Tennessee discontinued the use of the system there in Williamson County because of it. And then we have found here in Georgia that in 65 of 67 counties surveyed that we had the same error. So
yeah, but they didn't. Yeah. Did they discontinue it when they found that?
They did. I said they said just we're going to ignore it. We're going to keep on counting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Exactly. All right. So yeah, it looks like based on some of these articles that one of the strategies to prevent these counts before certification to happen or just investigation is to demonize it through what we've been talking about, and then put pressure on who's ever in charge of everything in the counties across the state.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's maybe pit counties against each other. There's an article here about the guy from Augusta. He's leading the way to say, no, we will not be investigating anything before certification.
Yeah, I was checking those counties. I was Augusta. Was it a Rich County or something like that? It was 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
I have to go and check about their different, directives and things.
I got another email from Fair Fight actually just a little while ago talking about this again. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are running on a platform of voter suppression. Really? Okay. And the GOP is working behind the scenes to suppress their voices. Trump still refuses to commit to accepting the results of the upcoming election, is what he says. Trump still refuses to commit to accepting the. It's an interesting statement there. And his
Yeah,
MAGA. Yeah.
it sounds like they already know what the results of the
I
upcoming.
know, it really does. Yeah. And as MAGA-backed members of the Georgia State Election Board are passing new rules that can be used to sow distrust in election outcomes and delay the certification of results. They pump those same messages into people's heads to where they just basically become unconscious. And it's just wild, man. They have the donation link again, of course.
I guess I'm fascinated. What are they going to do if their candidate loses?
That's what we've been talking about a little bit lately. I think that this whole Kamala is so great and joyful and just a wonderful person, which is just a complete flip on reality. And the enthusiasm, I think it's just an attempt to create the plausibility that she can win among enough people so that it looks, maybe that she should win, so that if she doesn't, they can just steal it and enough people would believe it. And then you can have a similar outcome as last time where it can be stolen and you can just call the people who pointed out insurrectionists. Because if it's like everybody's like Trump is definitely going to beat her and then they steal it, then you can't do that. And I don't know what will happen. I have a hard time seeing them allowing Trump to win with the way that they have been pushing everything. What do you think?
It's fascinating. I'd have to speculate, and I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just really fascinating. I asked the reporter. He was talking about this very thing. Trump not accepting the results of the election. Well, what if he wins? What are you going to do then? What if your candidate does not win? And he was he was completely quiet.
Right.
Never answer at all. It's like, do you already know they're going to cheat again and steal the election?
Yeah, the very questioning of that repeatedly, and saying statements like that it's part of that brainwashing thing where people who hate him are already, it can be stolen, and they never consider the possibility that there's legitimacy to the claims. They only see, oh, there he is refusing to accept an election. There's going to be books written about the effectiveness of some of the propaganda techniques we're seeing, brainwashing techniques we're seeing with the way technology has advanced. It's just going to be like they do these social experiments all the time. You look back 100 years, they have studies on how effective it was back then, but it's just advanced so rapidly, and messages can be delivered to so many people at one time. I mean, if you've been watching the DNC and seeing the chants that, especially Michelle Obama, who I don't know why they didn't run Michelle Obama. She's a lot better at doing this than Kamala is. Michelle Obama can say anything and just pump her fist in a certain way and say it with a certain tone. And almost instantly, everybody in that room and possibly people even at home are chanting whatever she wants them to chant. Now, they did that a little bit with the RNC, but not the way they did it at the DNC. It was crazy to watch the other night.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. We had a presentation up in Northwest Georgia. So I am out of the loop. I understand that Jeff Duncan spoke.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they had some Republican, and Georgia people that they like to throw out there.
I haven't watched. Although I did see a clip of an interview a guy did, and he was explaining how excited he was about Kamala Harris running for president. His arms were flapping up and down. He had this big T-shirt on.
Probably had a butt plug in.
Yeah, what?
A butt plug. So some of these people, I'm just like, look at these guys at this rally. They say certain things that makes you go, that guy definitely has a white dude for Kamala butt plug in or so. It's just so stupid, the things they say.
he said, "Oh, I've got a black wife, and she showed me so much."
I got a black wife.
Yeah, yeah, and she showed me so much about the minorities
That's so funny.
and everything, and it's like I just felt like he was being paid. It didn't come across as
None
the
of it comes off as authentic.
natural enthusiasm, the way
No.
what you saw that Saturday when you were down there at
I
the
completely agree. It seems artificial. And what they're doing, they've been writing articles about this, is they've brought in all these quote influencers on TikTok that have these big followings on TikTok, Instagram. I've never heard of many of them, but they do have big followings in certain niches. And they're like whining and dining them. And the article talked about how they're all getting access to yachts and the staffers, the Kamala staffers, while the mainstream media is not getting the same access. And to me, it's very obvious why. They already have the compromising photos of the mainstream media people. They're getting the compromising photos of the influencers whose drinks they're probably drugging and then, doing God knows what to. Like, I think that's almost definitely happening, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now you got to be careful unless you have the evidence to back that up. But,
Well, yeah, that's why. Yeah, that is my speculation. Definitely, I wish I had a statute to back that up. But a young, a young influencer who's being brought to come get on our yacht and have our free drinks. Don't accept a free drink from a DNC or RNC operative who's giving you a bunch of free stuff because they are going to expect something in return. And if you refuse to do it, which most of them probably won't, I feel like they might have a backup plan. I'm speculating.
yeah.
It's just crazy. But they had Little John come out there. They're doing this thing, Garland, where each night they come out with a giant book and they go, "This here, Project 2025. It's worse than you thought." Yeah. And usually the person is licking their lips raw because they took too many speed pills in the green room before they went out there. And they go, "We're going to read to you." And they throw it down and they flip it open on page 845 where it says, "Trump going to rip your womb out and eat it in front of your face." Just the craziest stuff that obviously is not actually in the book. And the fact check on it later on CNN will be, "Oh, yeah, I did a fact check on that. There was one thing that they said about Project 2025 that wasn't true. They said that Trump authored it. He did not author Project 2025. Only people who worked as previous administration." So they do that, making their viewers believe maybe they're telling us the truth because they're actually fact checking, but they ignore all the crazy stuff that are clearly made up. It's wild.
Wasn't Project 2025 a Heritage Foundation thing?
It was a Heritage Foundation thing that Trump has continually. So they keep saying Project 2025 is going to enable Trump to be a dictator. Project 2025 is going to make abortion illegal everywhere, despite Trump saying multiple occasions, Project 2025 does have some radical stuff in it. Abortion is going to be left up to the states. He's saying explicitly the opposite of everything that they are saying that he's saying.
Yeah.
But it's like they're building up a bunch of straw men and arguing against them, but these straw men don't exist. But everybody they're brainwashing doesn't realize that. Like, I've encountered friends that believe some of these things, and I'm like one lady last night did a screaming thing at the end of her thing. She held up her wedding ring. She goes, "And the Republicans are going to have to," because she's a lesbian, "are going to have to take my wedding ring off of my cold, dead hands." As though there's a bunch of Republicans hunting lesbians because they don't want, nobody cares that she's a lesbian that's married. But the people in that audience think that they're under attack, but it's all made up. It's crazy.
That's the whole way you motivate them. You get them psychologically programmed to believe that they are going to lose whatever, their freedom or threats or whatever, and then you get money from them. They'll be glad to give you money, and then
Yeah, they will.
And they'll
and their firstborn in some cases. I mean, they had an abortion van and a vasectomy van at the DNC, which is it's kind of I mean it's ridiculous. Garland is the man says Dr. Lano Mack, who is a dentist. If you need a dentist in the Atlanta area, Dr. Lano Mack. I will never go to Mark Zuckerberg's father's AI robot dentist, Lano, which is a story I covered the other day. It
Looks
seemed
like
kind of
he's also
scary.
a fisher.
Do what?
Looks like he's also a fisherman.
Oh yes. Are you a fisherman, Garland?
No, no. I only went fishing one time. I actually did catch a little baby shark, about 30 pounds.
Holy cow, that's
My uncle,
crazy.
my uncle took us out in Atlanta, but I had fun. I was sitting on the right side of the boat, and everything came into wherever I was, and I was reeling stuff in. Nobody else was catching anything,
Yeah.
but that was fun. But I'm just not a fisher. That was the only time I
I
ever
like
fished.
the lake. I don't do a lot of fishing. I am like fascinated by the ocean. It's like some of the things in there look like outer space beings to me. you know.
I only like to eat fish. I don't really like to.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on Tim Waltz? I know you don't. You stay pretty focused on what you're working on, but you got any thoughts on him?
No, I really didn't know the guy at all until they told me he was the governor of Minnesota. And
Coach governor of Minnesota. That's what they.
uh, yeah, and that's of course Minnesota. You know, he was obviously the guy that let Minneapolis burn.
I know, right? it's like,
I wow, I was kind of amazed that she took him. Of
yeah,
all,
he's
but
I, he's pretty fun. I think he's. I mean, he's a lot like Bernie Sanders with his history. He just comes off. He's like a white guy, like the optics of it that can counter the policies are going to be basically in the same place, but the image I think can appeal to people. He's
but now Bernie, I can respect Bernie because he was independent and he was anti-war. So
yeah,
I'll give him credit for that. But this guy seems to be a total establishment. Um,
he really does.
so but I don't really know him so that much. So
Yeah, the only interview Kamala has done since she became the nominee was the two of them interviewed each other and they talked about like their favorite music and so it's just so weird.
I heard of that.
yes, it's
Wow.
very strange.
It's like they can't get enough softballs from the mainstream media. They have to.
Right, they got to just interview each other. yeah. So, Garland, thanks for chatting with me. I always enjoy having you on. What's next for you? Where can people find you? How can they help you?
Well, what's next? We're going to be down at the Fish Fry in Middle Georgia on Saturday. And we'll be, I think Michael Watley is coming in from the RNC chair. And he's been talking about election integrity a lot.
Is this
So
the one that you were not allowed into last year?
yes, yes. Now we're allowed in this year because Governor Kemp is not going to be here.
yeah, yeah,
So, and I assume we can wear our voter GA shirts and
yeah.
everything honky dory. So we're getting back to normal. Still not totally back to normal down there.
Where will that be again?
They do that in Perry, Georgia.
Perry, Georgia. Okay, cool.
At the fairground. So
Yeah, yeah.
and then we're working on the state election board stuff pretty heavily, and that's we've got another meeting coming up on September the 9th, and I'll be presenting some rules. Oh, there's another very good rules I didn't tell you about. Lucia Frazier and Jason Frazier, you might know them. They have got rules to ensure that their eligible voters list is published 5 days before the election, and the list of voters who voted 5 days after the election. So that would help. That would help knock out a lot of voter roll fraud.
That would speed up the. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, well, at least to be able to detect and deter it. So those are the. I told the board that my rule was the most important, but now I think her two rules might be the most important to pass. So
It's good. Is there pushback against that rule? What do you think there will be?
there's a little bit of pushback. There's a false dialogue about has to do with elector privacy, and we have to basically shoot that down at the next meeting. I think we can do that, and then we'll be able to move forward, hopefully with that rule. with the support of the Arab majority, 3 board members that care about election integrity.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he made me think of something. I'm gonna have to watch the interview I did with these guys at the Bitcoin conference and get a great bring a better question to you. But these people I met at the Bitcoin conference, that Ordinals, I believe, is the company they worked with, and one of the things they were doing was they were doing votes for whose speech was better. Would you vote for Trump or Kennedy after the speeches? And the whole thing was you can go vote online. You don't have to worry about anybody lying about the poll results because it's all decentralized and it's like crypto based and whatnot. And I didn't fully understand it. I'm still trying to understand how it works. But the question I asked was like, so is this like election integrity protect? Like, is this what you guys are ultimately going for? And people there didn't want to get too political, even though they were a little bit anyway. But he was kind of like, "We're working on it, but we're not there yet." But yeah, that's kind of what we're working on. I immediately thought of you. Have you heard of anything like that in your work?
I have not. I have not.
Yeah, I'll get the info for you and see if it's something that interests you.
Okay. By the way, speaking of speeches, I think one of the best speeches that I heard this year was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the Libertarian Convention.
Yeah, yeah.
He took that. Well, you were there, right?
Yeah, I didn't get there until after his speech, but yeah, I saw it.
That I was really impressed. I mean, basically, he really showed tremendous knowledge of the Constitution.
He's smart.
Yeah, I thought he had a much better speech than Donald Trump. Some folks agree with me. Disagree with me. But I was really, I thought he had probably one of the best speeches.
Yeah, Trump, I think he didn't get as much pushback. So Trump had just kind of devolved into, okay, take your 3% if that's what you want. It was like crazy. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the worst speeches I've ever heard Trump make.
It was wild.
Yeah, sure. But that's what he did. That Trump is Trump. So,
and that's what he's going to be. And the Kennedy people were passing out squeaky ducks to like disrupt and stuff like that. And they actually filmed me and my friend who was dressed as Trump, and I was dressed as Secret Service. And so we were in some documentary, and my friend ended up on the front of an Instagram video that RFK Jr. was sharing around. So it was kind of cool. Yeah. So voterga.org, and people. Go ahead. Sorry, it kind of cut out a little bit.
No, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's voterga.org, nonpartisan, nonprofit, 501c3, got tax deductible donations, and we are volunteers.
Absolutely.
We are taking salaries from VoterGA.
Yeah, they're legit. If you want to support Garland, and after supporting Garland, if you want to support me, also do that as well. But definitely help Garland in their effort, because they're doing probably the most important work election-wise for election integrity in the country. And you can tell by the attacks that are being leveled and will continue to be leveled, and lies will be told. And so definitely help out any way you can, and spread the word about the work Garland's doing as well. Let's get some more eyes and ears on it. And you said the next Georgia State Elections Board's meeting is September 9th?
September 9th is the next board meeting.
Is that virtual or in person?
That will be in person this next week. Yeah, so that'll be great. And then
people could do public comment if they wanted to, if they prepared and went and signed up?
Yes, they could. We recommend coming early. They'll take the first 30, and then you have to go into do your comments after the meeting's over.
Great. So that's a way to show up to stuff like that as well. And yeah, awesome.
Yeah, if you're past the first 30 is what I meant. The first 30 or go in the first hour.
Yeah.
And then they have to do some business. So we'll have a lot of good rules that we're going to try to get passed.
And I expect there to be Democrat operatives or activists there. So, can show up and counter them with some election integrity supporters, because they're going to be bringing it. So, and I know you always bring, like, people come out. I remember you showed me a video maybe 9 months ago or so where you just filled the house for one of those things, and everybody was making great 2-minute speeches, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And we had over 800 people online.
It's awesome, man.
On this past meeting.
Well, Garland, thank you for spending some time with me. I always enjoy talking to you, and we'll do it again sometime soon. Keep up the great work, man. It's inspiring.
Thank you, Beckley. It's always fun to be with you.
All right, we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out in the chats. Have a fantastic rest of your day.